And this is the camera. So we'll just wait till the mayor's here.
Tell me you're not going to be shooting a picture from the rear.
Oh, tell us Joe? Oh, yeah.
Is that a wastewater room?
A wastewater show.
How many brown trout in a 36-inch sewer?
Oh, no. I can never think of jokes when I want to tell a joke. They're always, yeah.
Catch brown trout?
Oh, yeah, those are good. I gave Carmen a whole book of puns for her birthday. So. Okay, are you ready? So, Mayor, do you want to use this or do you want me to advance it?
I think I can use it. Is it just?
It's just this one. Yes. Okay, I'm ready, Mark. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us in person or online. My name is Amy Bowman, and I am the Director of Communications for the City of Nampa. And I will be very brief. I just wanted to make sure the public knew about our budget approval process. We have created several opportunities for the community to learn about the proposed budget, to ask questions, to go deep with some of our staff if they would like. And we just invite them to be part of it. We would love to continue to build trust with the community that we serve, and we believe that being open and transparent through this process is very important. So as you can see, there's a number of milestone dates on this screen. And I would encourage you, if you're interested, to listen to the Chief Finance Officer's presentation from June 15th. And he kind of did a great explanation into the budget, foundational information for the budget. The next big event that will be happening outside of our next open house on the 29th will be the budget workshop with the council. And then the deadline for submitting final comments to the City Council is August 2nd, and our final public hearing, or the public hearing for this process, is on August 7th. So, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the mayor's office or to the clerk's office, and we will be happy to help you. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce Nampa Mayor Debbie Kling.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for getting us started. And I just want to say thank you to those that are watching this online. Needless to say, we want to help educate our citizens. We want you to better understand the budget. And so that's why we're doing the presentation that we're doing today. So, you know what? Nampa is committed to being a safe and healthy community where people prosper. There we go. And we have a number of priorities, and we'll talk about those in just a second. But one of the things I want to mention is that we have a history of being conservative. And that's a wonderful thing, especially when it comes to thinking about the amount of foregone that we haven't taken. So I will say that we have foregone are taxes that we never took. And that's just about $4.4 million. But in addition to that, we've disclaimed about another $1.5 million. And with House Bill 389 that took place a couple of years ago, we have over $8 million that we could have levied in taxes that we have not levied. That's a savings of about $200 per household per year. With that, we have been recognized nationally by Wallet Hub for 7 years in a row as the #1 best-run city in the nation, which is really something to be excited about. Except that, and the positive side is, when people talk about taxes, our budget per capita is one of the very lowest. Stewardship is really important to us, and so it's evidenced by that. The key, though, is that as we look to the future, we also need to make sure that we're investing in our community, right? Because what we hand our children and our grandchildren is extremely important to me, and I think it's important to our citizens also. But we are conservative. And the other thing that we've done is that for 6 years in a row, we've had an annual community survey. And we're listening and we're incorporating that feedback. So you'll see the proposed budget on here, and all I want to say on that is that Doug Racine is going to be talking about our budget. And one thing I'll say very quickly is that we've had increased costs this year, outside of our control, of over $1 million. Yet, we've netted to only $200,000. And I can't remember, did we go down $200,000 in savings?
Yeah, $172,000.
Okay, that's why the finance guy's going to go over the budget. So thank you, Doug. So we've gone down $172,000 when we had over $1 million in unavoidable cost increases. So that's pretty important to know. But back to the community survey. There we go. So in listening to our community, we have put together some city goals. And one is to maintain a safe and healthy community. The second goal, because of listening, is that, and the safety is because public safety has ranked #1 every year on the priorities for our citizens. But the second one is improving movement in and through Nampa. Transportation and traffic is right at the top of the concerns with the growth that we've had of our citizens. And so it's a very high priority for us, and we have goals centered around improving movement in and through Nampa. We also have goals around creating economic opportunity and excellence in city government. As you can see from this next slide, there's a lot on there. The city of Nampa does a lot for our community. And this particular slide is just an illustration of the many services and amenities that we work to provide to Nampa's residents and to the businesses. So there is a lot there that keeps us all very busy. Well, one thing that I probably don't need to tell anyone is that our population has grown. And so this chart actually reflects the growth in our population. While the next chart, I can get it to go there. There we go, shows our full-time city workforce. While our city has grown significantly in the last 20 years, we really have not increased staffing at the same pace. And so I've had an employee ask the question, and it was a good question, when are we going to stop asking our employees to do more with less? Because they hear it year after year after year. That said, stewardship, integrity, and teamwork are the city's core values. And that stewardship piece, our employees hear all the time. So with that, as we have worked diligently to put together a good budget, I want to say thank you to Doug Racine and to the entire finance group. They've done an absolutely outstanding job. And I feel good about the budget that we're presenting. And I'm sure as people look through it, they will always find their little things. But I feel good about where we are. We have a phenomenal team. And Doug, I just want to say thank you for your work. And so I would like to introduce our Chief Financial Officer for the City of Nampa, Doug Racine, and he's going to walk us through the budget. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon to all online and those here. The budget process is long and time-consuming. I'm hoping we can shorten that in the future. But one of the most significant goals we put into play this year was to increase the budget accuracy, to focus on the items that we can control this year and budget for those, and not over budget, not under budget, but budget for what we need. And we also focused on adding transparency to the budget by adding new object codes or accounts and new organizations that helps to improve the transparency and the visibility of all the budgetary elements. So with that in mind, let's go into the budget a little bit and kind of talk about if I can get this right, where we're going with the budget. Let's go down to the budget book intro here. Inside the budget, we're living like you all within the constraints of our economy. And it adds and it causes pressure, the economy causes pressure and gives us opportunities. Some of the things very quickly that are causing us to kind of drive the growth is housing. There's a great demand for housing that is unmet. Inflation is up. It's down from FY fiscal year 22, but it is still high. We're having some increased interest rates are both a blessing and a curse. We're seeing skilled employees being very much in demand across the Treasure Valley. And then we look on the other side of the coin and we recognize there are factors constraining budgetary growth. State shared revenues in the last few months have been declining. We want to be aware of that as we build our budget on those. We have the possibility of economic uncertainty. There are various aspects of the economy that are a little uncertain, and that could cause an economic slowdown. So we don't want to over budget in that case. In August, the student loan repayments will start up again, and so those who owe that money, who have been using that money for daily expenses, will now have to go put it back to repaying student loans, and that could pull a little bit out of the economy. Let's go on to the funding sources. Funding for the City of Nampa is a highly complex structure. There is no easy way to navigate this, but for the citizens of Nampa, the primary funding for general government, which is the first section called government, is property taxes. Supplementing that is state shared revenues. That funds the police, it funds the mayors, the human resources, finance, all of the central services is what's funded by the property taxes and shared services revenue. And the shared services revenue being state sales taxes and state liquor taxes. Other funds in enterprise and internal service receive fees and permits from services for utilities, water, wastewater, irrigation, and so forth. And then we have some internal services that provide services mostly to the city, but also the utility billing office, which receives payments from individuals and account holders. There's more funding structure, special revenue debt. It's interesting, it's important to note that the general obligation bond will be paid off in fiscal year 24. So that's been 30 years in making. We'll make our last payment in July of 2024. This is kind of an eye chart, and I apologize for this, but what I'd like you to focus on is the very top line where it says property taxes. So on the far right, probably far left, it shows $31,884,000 of property taxes for government. That's what funds police. Almost that entire amount goes to police. In fact, it does. In special revenue is $8.4 million. That's parks, library, cemetery, airport. That's where all those property tax funds go. And the debt is the general obligation bond. So out of the $42 million of property tax assessment, 75% goes to general government, and that goes directly to funding the police. Let's look at the funding a little bit more in terms of the type of funds coming in. And this is for general government. This is for, like again, I said, the police, mayor's office, finance, HR, IT, all of the internal services. We have a total budget of $57.2 million. Fees and services account for $1.8 million, and we had some increased revenues from court costs and the Nampa Development Services Corp, driving that up a little bit over the prior year. Fund balance, we're using, and this has been approved by council, we're using about $1.6 million to help fund the development of the horse park at the Fort Idaho Center. And this is money we had reserved from prior years, but we're formally budgeting for it and recognizing it in FY24. And that's what the $1 million is for, that use of fund balance to help build the horse park. Miscellaneous, you'll notice on the miscellaneous line, that's up substantially over the prior year. This is due to the great increase in interest rate and interest income from the city's holdings. This is likely to be a one-time benefit. It will not, probably not repeat nearly to this degree in a future year, but this money will be used for emergent capital needs, not operational costs, because it will not recur. So when we have any degree of deferred maintenance, deferred capital, that's what this increase is being used for. Property taxes for general government up $1.7 million, and that increase is again being dedicated entirely to the police department and public safety. Intergovernmental costs, or intergovernmental revenues, those are the total shared state revenues for sales tax and liquor tax, and they're up just modestly over what we budgeted for in the prior year. And transfers throughout the city, we transfer costs and revenues to fund various elements of the city, and that's more or less flat with the prior year. If you look at the same information in terms of a pie chart, you get a good feeling. On the left is a good understanding. On the left is the total sources, and you can see exactly how the city is funded in entirety. 37% from fees and services, and property taxes only account for 15% of the total city operations. So that's everything from internal services to water to wastewater. That's only 15% of what funds the city, with the largest piece coming very clearly from the fees and services that pay for the water, the wastewater, irrigation, and so forth. And then on the right-hand side, the general government, we show that 56% of our funding comes from property taxes, with 15 and 22% from intergovernmental. That's the shared state revenues for sales taxes and liquor taxes. Let's talk a little bit about property taxes. Property taxes, when you get your assessment, and you've all received your valuation assessments for the year, they cover much more than just the city. It covers the school districts, the Canyon County operations, Nampa Fire, Highway District, College of Western Idaho, and urban renewal where appropriate. Now, the city is probably the largest single component, but we are only one of several components that add up to your entire tax assessment. And it's important to understand that, and this is confusing for many people, the levy rate is not what determines your taxes. The levy rate is determined by taking the city's budget, the entire governmental budget, of property taxes, which is about $42 million, and that gets divided by the city's total taxable value. For the current year, the taxable value is about $18.9 billion. That results in the levy rate. And then the levy rate is then applied to your homeowners to determine the assessment on your personal property taxes for your assessment. Again, we've been through some of the funding. This is a slightly different look at it. But again, property taxes for the government is 56%, and property taxes for the total city is only 15%. If we look at this chart shows how the property tax is used, not where it's collected from, but how it's used. So general government gets 31.8%. So that's 75.3%. That 100% of that goes to support the public safety and police. Then you look at the streets. They get $2.5 million. Airport and cemetery are smaller amounts, but they're critical to keep the operations for those services of the city. And then parks gets 2.7, almost $2.8 million. The library, $2.7 million. And the general obligation bond, again, which I mentioned, is the last payment. And in fact, we have fund balance to use for a portion of that payment, so the amount assessed and levied against the homeowners will go down about $600,000 as we use the fund balance for that final payment, which is good for taxes. Now, this diagram really shows what general government pays for. It's a broad array of services. Keeping in mind we are entirely nonprofit. We cannot charge for more than our costs are to provide any given service. So if we add up how much it costs to do a particular service, whether it be something in the clerk's office or in the engineering department or in fleet, we cannot charge more than our cost. But we pay for quite a bit within the city council, the facilities, which maintains it, economic development, finance, the mayor's office, public works admin. It's all part of the general government. If we look at the history of the levy rate, it's dramatic. Back in 2015, 0.009. We are now down to 0.003. The final number for estimate for the current year is still an estimate. We'll have the final numbers when the final tax assessments come in from Canyon County, but it's still decreased slightly from the prior year. And for those of you who've looked at your assessments, overall, the assessments stayed relatively flat, with residential going down a bit and commercial valuations going up a bit. So a little bit of a shift, but in total, the valuation of Canyon County did not change much during the course of the year, whereas in the prior year, our total valuations went up 45%, and that was a dramatic impact. I want to come back to something the mayor mentioned. When we talked about focusing on budget accuracy and transparency, we also focused heavily on cost avoidance, where we looked at the departments, and by adding all the new accounts in, and there's over 30 accounts, plus several new organizations, we're able to see with greater visibility what our costs are. And through a combined effort across the entire city, we were able to absorb some rather substantial cost increases by cutting other areas. And the mayor mentioned healthcare costs have gone up. Facilities insurance, with the recent rise of inflation and the valuation of property, the cost to insure that property has gone up. Workers' compensation costs, maintenance contracts, chemical costs for treating anything that has a chemical base to it, whether it's cleaning or maintenance or wastewater, those costs are going up. Pavement management, fleet services, substantial. Still, we were able to cut our operational costs by $172,000 compared with the prior year, which is to me, it's a huge win. Looking at the budget by cost category, that means personnel and operations and so forth. You can see that the personnel services increased 4.7. That's from new FTs, the market, the COLA, benefits cost, healthcare costs, and all the related impacts, up $4.7 million. Operations cost down 172. And capital, that I'll get to in a little more detail, this is the accuracy part of the budget. We reduced the capital spend by $62 million over the prior year. A big chunk of that, about half of that, comes directly from the wastewater treatment plant build, which is, which is completely on budget and at an accelerated pace, which in the long run will save money, as projects that get delayed tend to cost more. This one's moving faster than scheduled, but on budget. And then debt service is dropping a little bit because of the use of fund balance, and then transfers and allocations increasing a bit as we move costs and revenues around across the city to meet the various needs of the organizations. The total city budget by fund type is presented below, and with the graph on the top. General government's up, but keep in mind in a lot of that, there's $1 million of interest income, $1.2 million of interest income that's spending. There's the $1.6 million for the horse park, and then about 1.9 for COLA, market merit, and FTEs. So while it may appear to be a significant increase, much of that is one-time expenditure that will not be present in future budgets. And the capital, we can see where the capital is going down. In the enterprise funds, that's primarily wastewater. But we've also looked at the streets, and we've looked at the impact fees and all of the departments to budget within our capacity to complete a project so that we don't have the ups and downs that create a wave where we have a spike and then a fall off and then a spike. We're trying to get this tied down to where we can budget only for the projects we can complete within the current year and smooth out the budget process, make it easier to understand, less volatile, and well within our capacity to fund. And that is the budget presentation. If there are any who have questions and are unable to do so now, you can reach out to us at the city through Amy or through the finance department, and we can try and answer any questions. If you have additional comments, the public hearing will be on August 7th, and we look forward to any and all comments. Thank you very much, and I'll turn it back over to Amy Bowman.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you to all who attended and watched online. This is the QR code, so the proposed budget is already on our website. You can find it at cityofnampa.us, and you'll see a link at the beginning of the page. And I'd like to say thank you again to the finance team, because this is a huge, huge lift that they start months in advance, and it's an exciting time, and it'll be exciting when it's over, right? So thank you very much, and have a good evening.